What's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark. We got a comment for blind film critic, and we're back with Bridgerton Part 2, the second half of season 4. It does have audio description on Netflix, produced by International Digital Center, written by Liz Gutman, and I wish I could remember the name of the narrator right now, but I can't. Um, Bridgerton first of all, has excellent audio description. There's a scene in is it episode 5 or 6? I would say the bedding, right? That I'll just call it the bedding. Spoilers, by the way, because it's sort of a recap slash review. Um, when uh, when Sophie and Benedict finally get it on. Um, yeah, that scene was really well described, and I appreciated that. So, but we definitely had some twists and stuff in store. Anthony returned for the second half with Kate for like one episode, but still he returned is the point. Reggae Gene Page. I love that Jonathan Bailey still has time to do an episode of Bridgerton, but like Reggae Gene Page is like, I can't be bothered. I just cannot be bothered. I just cannot be bothered. Um, it's like, bitch, you wouldn't be famous without Bridgerton. Nobody would know who you are. Get back here. Walk through this show at some point. Um, but yeah, so that was interesting. And there was a huge push to like remind Benedict that, what he was doing was like societal suicide, just this he was gonna go have to like live in the woods if he chose Sophie, and he could never come in human contact with anybody ever again. You can never come into town. We'd barely be able to see you. We'd only be able to write. We would still love you though from a distance. you know. Um and I was just like, man, this is terrible. What a terrible season. I actually kind of thought they were gonna like move to America because of the whole thing they introduced with Sophie and the fact that the family was moving to America. I was like, well, that's a great way for him to not have to worry about how society sees him, is to hop on a boat and move to America with Sophie. So, where people won't know what that she was a maid, or that her mother was a maid and her father was of nobility. So, um, what ends up happening with Benedict and Sophie, the core couple here is when we get back into it, they had that stolen moment thing, right? Where they were, and he was chasing her through the house of like the end of part A. In part B, we sort of continue to explore that, and they go and they have this sex scene where Alice is like listening outside. and finally give in to each other's passions, and um, then she feels regretful to the experience, and he's confused, and he actually loves her and commits to her, and this is where he brings up, by the way, outwardly, and she does not flinch, which I thought was great for the show, which has mixed in a little bit of queer culture into it. The fact that he is bisexual, the fact that he's bedded both men and women, and he's not ashamed of it. And she's not like, really? Oh. Like, the show just kind of ignores it. They're just like, yeah, okay. And moving on. So, um, so it leads through this whole thing where now her neighbor is, of course, right? Like, of all places, the person who would move in next door to the Bridgertons is the nasty stepmother, the evil stepmother of hers. Now lives next door and is hot on the case with Sophie, is incensed by the existence of Sophie still in this world, and has since learned that these little things that were stolen, and is trying to use those as the reason to put Sophie away, trying to find her. So, trying to go over and convince Violet that Sophie was a thief and all that kind of stuff, and so Violet kind of warms up a little bit and sees that Sophie went through some shit because nobody likes this lady. Um, I kind of wonder why Violet isn't closer to the Queen. That's sort of a hot take that I have for the show because, the Queen is looking for a new confidant and she found it in Alice, but I'm like, why doesn't she like Violet? Like, straight up. I mean, she has plenty of room. She seems to not like any of her, ladies in waiting or whatever. So, why doesn't she I mean, a lot of Violet's problems in general could be solved by being a lot closer to the Queen. Anyway, um, so, and with their writing of Lady Danbury to exit the season, it seems like that leaves a path open. So, Lady Danbury, I'm jumping around here. I'm sorry. I usually do things unstructured anyway. Lady Danbury does finally get her wish. She gets the blessing of the Queen to leave, and also because Alice proves herself in terms of being able to be a good friend to the Queen and provide her the kind of like gossip and everything that the Queen needs in life. So, with the whole connection of because she sees and realizes the Benedict and Sophie thing and sort of helps that not just help get them together, but also help make it interesting so that the Queen is invested in it and invested in it in a way which um, would not be societal suicide for them and for Sophie. So it all works out. Basically, we work up to the point where Sophie is ready to leave. She has the letter of recommendation from Violet. Benedict is still like really upset about everything, and she's ready to leave and go hop on this boat with this family that's moving to America. But as she does that, her evil stepmother has her arrested for thievery of fake jewelry and impersonating, a person of nobility. And so then she gets put in jail and nobody's there to rescue her. I was actually like mildly worried. I was like, but nobody saw this. So how are they going to find out she's in jail? And so what ends up happening is, of course, evil stepmother can't keep things to herself. So she has to go back and brag. And it turns out both the the maid that works there now, who kind of ratted out Sophie to begin with, is a little sympathetic and tries to help the cause, as is Posey. Posey was like, wait a minute, what? um, so they get word, and Benedict is able to burst into court in just enough time to save Sophie. And then they set off on this path of trying to prove Sophie's innocence, also by having leverage on the evil stepmother, which they use by breaking in and finding her father's will. Benedict points out, rightly so, because Sophie's like, my father didn't leave me anything. I don't have, and he's like, I don't know her that well, but it's clear this woman hates you. Why would you trust anything that she says? And I'm like, good boy, Benedict. Um, so Sophie goes in and she's able to find the will and she reads it and she notices that she was left equal. It was split three ways. There was a dowry that was left for her by her father. And so basically her evil stepmother, I forget her name, I don't care, um, is in the same sort of like legal jeopardy because she was supposed to follow the letter of the law in terms of this thing, and the reason she kept Sophie around was because there was a fund that paid for it. So basically she was raking in a certain amount of money from this trust, I guess, that her husband left behind to help care for Sophie. But then she just kind of took the money and made Sophie the maid, and Sophie never saw any of that money. So, very shady shit that's happening in this household. And the other daughter kind of starts to wake up to it too. She's also kind of a little bit of a bitch, but there's a point where Sophie calls him out and says, that I had a dowry, and I'm sure that And then the other daughter realizes exactly because Posey says how much her dowry is. And then the other girl says that and realizes that her dowry is twice that. Like Posey's dowry is like 18,000. And the other girl's like, mine's 36. Mother, did you not have any faith in me? Because basically she just took Sophie's dowry and gave it to the older daughter that's currently being courted by somebody. I guess she figures Posey will figure it out. I don't know. So, it all ends in Alice's plan is to get everybody to the ball and to get them all sort of in the same room and work this shit out. And basically, it's a lose. It's everybody has like a kill switch on the other, and so they basically decide to drop it and move on with their lives. So she's defeated. Evil stepmother can't really do anything. She's been nerfed. Posey and Sophie still have a lovely relationship together. At least one of her step sisters wasn't evil and enjoys her, and they have a nice little hug. And I'm sure if we continue to explore Posey as a character, that it'll. But some of these other peripheral characters that come in and out that are not part of the Bridgerton family, they really just come in and out. Like they drift in and out. Some of these other people who have been like family friends and stuff, like they're way in the peripheral when they don't matter to the story. So I don't expect to see a lot of Posey in the future. Although she does now live next door to the Bridgertons, so stranger things have happened. So they end up together, and they don't need to societally. They don't need to go live in the woods. They can live amongst themselves. Benedict asks Sophie to marry her. There is some recognition of the fact that her father was of noble birth, and therefore, with the will and everything. And I guess I don't understand how he's not shunned anymore, how the situation changed for him, but the queen does like Sophie, so maybe that's it. Maybe she has the queen's favor. I don't know. Anyway, who cares? Happy ending. That's what we all wanted. That's why people come to Bridgerton, is for happy endings, not sad endings. Speaking of, Francesca, though, who is one of the two girls that they're thinking about, that they've toyed about putting up for season 5, is her and Eloise. So Francesca lost her husband in the second half of the season. John dies, leaving Francesca with a rather excellent storyline about feeling like that she was inadequate as a wife because she didn't produce a child, which I thought was one of the heavier moments of the series, because it's kind of like a light flirty thing that we all watch with like people getting swept off their feet and romance and costumes and everything, right? So Francesca actually gets to kind of explore that, and then she starts exploring something with the sister, who then flees. Like, her and Michaela are actually kind of becoming friends. I'm like, are they trying to suggest that these two would have a thing together? Because Michaela like has this thing where, but Francesca's offer for Michaela to stay, it doesn't seem like there's anything romantic behind it. But Michaela's the one who like looks down at her ring, and then she like flees. And she's like, yes, I'll stay. And then like she's gone in the middle of the night. So it's possible that Michaela, who we don't know as much about as we do with Francesca, is the one that has feelings for Francesca. They might have been setting that up. I don't know. But Michaela pieces out and leaves Francesca there alone. But Francesca still has all of her giant family, the whole Bridgerton clan there, except the ones who have married off, like the season 1 family and the season 2 family of Anthony and Kate that were only around for one episode. But Colin has still been around with his wife, who gave up being, Penelope gave up being Lady Whistledown. But then somebody else starts writing as Lady Whistledown at the end of this. Is it Penelope? Because we hear it come back. We hear Julie Andrews' voice. It goes, "Dear reader, did you really think I'd be gone?" I don't think it's Penelope writing. I don't. I think it's somebody else. So it'd be interesting to see if that is true. But that's my theory, is that it's not Penelope, that somebody else has taken up the mantra of Lady Whistledown in order to try to entertain the queen or whatever. I don't know. So, but they have to continue to be interesting, is the thing. They have to be as good of a writer as Penelope is. So it'll be interesting to see what that is in season 5, or if Penelope just gave up and was like, can I write it? Whatever. Friday for the Queen, I don't know. So, um, moving on down the line, the young Bridgerton brother, the one that's left, whose name I cannot remember, had barely anything to do this season. There's no way that they're he's like season 8 or 7 at this point. Like him and Hyacinth are like not out. They're not next. They still feel like they're little kids. So they have some growth to go. But he the most. I mean, he barely does anything in the show. The last Bridgerton boy. I can't imagine they would elevate him even in season 6. He didn't need to do a lot of character growth in season 5. Hyacinth is worried about her debut and how all of this looks on her, and she doesn't really want to. So that's like the biggest thing she has to do. Eloise is starting to get out there a little bit, but she still wants to be independent. I don't think she makes an excellent candidate to host the season around, but I suppose it feels like they're pushing more for Eloise than anything else. They're trying to set her up because the girl who doesn't ever want to marry, getting married, right? It's a great story. They kind of did a Cinderella thing this time around. I'm sure with Eloise, it'll be, you know, who would be the man that would make the woman who never wants to marry finally want to marry? Um, or a girl. We'll see. I like the Violet and Marcus thing. I do. I like their relationship. I like their banter together. I find them to be warm. And the fact that she's like, I just am finally starting to discover myself. I was like, come on. Come on now. Marcus is amazing. Marcus is great. Marcus just like stands there all the time and just stares at you like adoringly and constantly like is at her beck and call. He doesn't like dominate or in terms of like a male companion for a woman, he's so like submissive without being like weak. You know what I'm saying? Like he's a very strong presence, but he never pushes her. He's never like we're doing this or yeah. It doesn't feel like he's ever like a take charge type of guy. He's very calm and soft and he just has a very wonderful dynamic with Violet, and I hope she gets her shit together because I actually wanted them to be the main couple. My argument is season 5 should be Violet and Marcus trying to figure out how they're making this work and letting the kids know when the kids seem to not be here for Violet having a second husband. Which they could actually have a parallel with because Violet could do that at the same season as Francesca, who also would need to find another companion now that she doesn't have one. You know, these two, I guess they're dowagers now, right? It's not what they're called. Um, so the widows of their time. Um, yeah, so they could be sort of simultaneously telling two versions of the story, but generationally apart, as they're both trying to navigate that. That would be an interesting timeline. But damn, I like their dynamic together. Anyway, lovely performances across the board. I don't really have any problems with the cast. Even the little ones, even all the little supporting players that pop in and around. Everybody's great here. I like Bridgerton. I think it's still creatively strong in its 4th season. Even if it did kind of tilt a little bit in the Cinderella direction, and I was kind of like, okay, guys, are we just going to start leaning in on things that came up previously in other works? So, uh, I don't know, maybe season 5 will be Rapunzel or Snow White. I don't know. Um, but they haven't made a firm announcement on which character they're following for season 5. But the showrunner has said it's either going to be one or the other of the Bridgerton girls. So please make it Violet. Please have a second change of heart. I hope Bridgerton fans say it's time for Violet to be in charge. It's also time for Violet to be sitting next to the Queen. Like, if Lady Danbury is not going to be there anymore, can we have Lady Bridgerton? Can that be a thing, please? Like, I just love Violet. I think she's an excellent character. So she had so many great moments here too, where she was trying to do the right thing and also ended up leaning in the direction where the audience wouldn't hate her for it. Instead of being like a frustrating character. Even her choice at the end to it's not that she doesn't love Marcus, it's that she's just like, I don't know that I want to marry. I'm just starting to figure out who I am. I'm like, just now? Don't you think that it's Marcus who's helping you get your groove back? Like, come on. Anyway, Marcus, to be fair, didn't say that he wouldn't wait for her, but he did say, "I'll wait for you if I thought you would ever. I'll wait for you if I think you're ever, you know." So it's just sort of like if I guess he's willing to wait if he thinks that it's just waiting, and that she just needs more time, and that eventually she will pick him. So I hope they don't write off Marcus. We'll see. Anyway, Bridgerton season 4, part B, part 2, whatever you want to call it, but also my review for the whole season. Uh, I don't know. I like the season a lot. It was complex. The thing about these characters is if you run them a long time, you end up sort of enjoying their season. I think we're starting to get to a point where, because we're getting deep into this show, you have to start fleshing out the younger characters that you were going because you're going to run out of Bridgertons. Um, I'm going to need more from the young ones, which is one of the reasons why they're looking at the possibility of even doing Francesca to begin with, even though she already had a husband. Doing a whole season on Francesca is because they realize the fact that like Hyacinth and the young brother are not ready for prime time. So we're going to need to do more development in their area. That's probably my biggest criticism, is that there are like two Bridgertons that I feel like I know nothing about or very little about. It's also interesting how some of the other Bridgertons, when they come back in around, are like barely there. Like, did Colin do anything this season? Like, did he have a purpose? Um, so I would say moving forward, and one of the reasons why something like a Violet season would be really good for this show is that we already know who Violet likes. And so if you stick to that, it could be a wonderful season to continue to explore the Bridgertons instead of like graduating them off the series, which is what it kind of feels like. It feels like somebody floats in. I feel like a Violet season would allow for the Bridgerton family to come together and to have a lot of moments where they all grow together, which is something that the younger Bridgertons need anyway. And I would argue Eloise could benefit from before she has her own season. So, it focuses so hard sometimes on one Bridgerton that the other ones just kind of fall away. I don't. They barely mention the oldest sister. The only time her connection even comes up is when they say something about how Bridgerton is how Benedict is also related to the Duke of whatever he is. So like I don't know. It's gonna get kind of weird towards the end if you keep graduating Bridgertons off the show, and then like they just kind of like pop in and say like, "Hey, what's up?" and then they disappear again. So I'd love to see like a Bridgerton season, and I think the best way to do that is to anchor it through Violet, because she already has a boyfriend, and exploring the awkwardness of that and how her family reacts to it, and how what it would be like for a lady of her age in that time period to fall in love again. Maybe if you really want to make it interesting, have someone else be interested in Violet, so that way Marcus not only gets a chance to maybe end up with Violet, but maybe somebody else comes in and he has to kind of fight for her. And I don't know, but I think Violet's the right choice. I stand by that. Producers of Bridgerton have the guts to pick the older cast member too, instead of continuing to pick the younger ones. I think your audience is ready for it. Anyway, I'm gonna go Bridgerton season 4. I'm gonna give it an 8.4 out of 10. I really like the show. Is it their best season? I don't know. Like creatively, who's to say? I think season two, maybe three, season two or three is probably the better one. I'd really have to think about it. Um, but yeah, so but I do like the show. Anyway, could keep going with it. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the other side.